Okay. So again, looking for what you're expecting to learn, what you need to learn, and then we'll talk a little bit about our direction and the things that we've been doing and want to continue to do. And we want to obviously support you guys and continue to bring more features and get your ideas as to what would help you guys run more effective and efficient shows. I mean, that's kind of our goal. Many of you guys work with AQHA, we've got APHA and POAC, NSBA. Obviously, we do lots of other breeds as well, too. But the more we all work together, from our perspective, has always been the more we all work together and gather intel. That's what we've been doing for 30 years. And every time you guys get an update, it's because Chris might have said, hey, I could really use this report. Or, Lindsay says, would it be really great if I could do this at my show, kind of thing. And then everybody gets the benefit of that in the end. So if we want to kind of shout out or go around, I don't know if we want to go around again, or if anybody has specific things that they want to, Heather, you want to start, just kind of tell me what you're thinking, and then we'll just kind of capture some of the ideas and thoughts that what you're looking for and where you want to go.
I think for us, it was just kind of recap on the program again, and then more kind of for show tracker kind of stuff. We don't do a lot with that, so kind of learning a little more on that side of it.
Well, great. That's on the agenda. Cool.
and really that, unfortunately, Michigan Quarter Horse has hired an outside show management now, so we had been utilizing, I've been running and using the horse show for Windows, and now they've hired TNT to do everything. So Heather and I are kind of freelancing a little bit. So, she's been building the show, she's been playing in the program. I know how to use it, but I'd like to dig back in again. And part of the reason that they went with TNT was because of the additional technology that was available. And I said to them, the tracker's available, but I am not an IT person. So in order to bring in the extra equipment, I mean, we can network our computers, but that's about as good as we are at it. But in order to bring in the extra technology, I'm not going to say I'm not capable of doing it, but it's not in my wheelhouse, and I've got enough other stuff to do. So I'd like to get familiar with, with what the tracker does, how difficult it is to set up, how difficult it is to use it, and try to embrace that a little bit.
Well, our goal certainly is to help take away your pain points, so that's on the agenda as well today to do that, as far as putting your network together, using and utilizing the mobile tools. Marge?
Definitely a recap and see, are there little things that I don't use or that I could be using a little more to my advantage. And we're seriously thinking about tablets for Region 6. Region 6 is seriously thinking about that.
When is that show?
July, to help save time,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going late and it's like we want to knock a couple hours off.
Yep. Yeah, we've
That's
successfully
well,
done that. Yeah, we've successfully done that at a lot of shows too. So that's.
Darren Moore is our announcer, and he's
very good.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He says we can cut a couple hours off, and we need to do that.
Ours is pushing it, but
Well, yeah, that's.
Well, I don't know.
I think
Depends
it's a
on
big show.
yeah.
I'm going to say ours is probably accurate.
on a larger show, it's hours per day. And
Yeah.
that's for,
That's what that's what we're hoping. And
Yeah.
just to find the little things that I know are there, and I haven't figured out myself.
Yeah, we keep adding new things. We've talked about this all the time, and we're not real good at remembering to put them all on a list so that everybody knows some of the new stuff. Ann and Heidi were talking, Ann was like, wait, I can do that? Kind of thing. I'm like, well, yeah, you can do that. And so we're trying to get better at making a list of things that we have changed. Sometimes it's just like little tweaks and twerks that, we've talked to somebody and this, oh yeah, that didn't quite work the way they expected. And we make a little tweak. And then, we always, I don't know, it's hard to sometimes remember to tell everybody that that's a thing. Or then you think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But then you talk to somebody and you're like, oh, well, that was a really big deal.
We use that a lot.
Yeah. I didn't think about that report that 3 people over the last 4 days said, well, how come this report doesn't do that? I'm like, okay, now it does. And who knew that everybody used that report? So yeah, little things like that. Charlene?
I'm just here kind of refresher, and Lindsay's the one that mainly does this well. Mine would be mobile tracker and then online entries.
Online entries, very good. That's also on the list of stuff to talk about. So that's great. Perfect. Lindsay, are you, who's doing the office for the Congress? Are you specifically doing it? Okay. So that will be helpful because hopefully we can get you guys to utilize that this year. When do entries open for that? Do you remember? Do you have a date?
They're open now.
Oh, they're open now. Okay. Very good. Oh, yeah.
It's too early.
Yeah. People don't like thinking about it too early. Ann, how about you?
Online entries, tracker, tablets,
Cool, mobile tools.
all that stuff.
Excellent, excellent. Anything, Michelle, that you're specific about that nobody's mentioned?
How to make the mobile tools work in facilities that aren't so
Mm.
helpful.
That's a scare for us,
Mm-hmm.
for the Region 6.
Mm-hmm.
That when it's not short, then the Wi-Fi there is not the.
Michelle, are you wanting to use them at Denver ever, do you think, or do you think that facility?
It's not concrete, but I think if we, the problem at Denver is I get guys like you that make things faster. It's when I have someone that is here to me and they're like, they can't even use the walkie-talkie, so how are they going to use the tablet?
Well, funny enough, that particularly is easier on scribes who don't know anything. The tablets are an easier function than them writing things out, and there's less chance for mistakes on things, and the tablets really help with the lacking scribe end of things. They help that instead of make it harder on them, which everybody thinks is just the opposite. They think, oh no, now we're using technology to do this. And Sun Circuit's a perfect example. Doug has a bunch of scribes who are not maybe the best at some of the things they do, and the tablets kind of cover that up and make it much easier for them to do things. So
Yeah.
one thing that would help with some of the,
I'll tell you
staffing.
too, for those of you guys who are a little nervous with some of your staff, is we've actually been to several shows, and Ray in particular has worked with many of the people at the gate who were like, what was your one guy who's like, yeah, you're not gonna get me to convince. He's like, I'm a piece of paper and a pencil kind of guy. And within an hour, he had put the paper and pencil down and was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so much easier, blah, 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 blah. And by the time we ended one day at a show that had 3 gates, and he was the gatekeeper. Actually, this is in Germany, so they call him something different there. And he had one tablet that was open with Horse Show for Windows, or I'm sorry, with Horse Show Tracker that had the pattern book linked to their show. So he had the patterns open there, so that as he had to fix the trails and things of that nature, he was in and out of there. He had another tablet that had the gate itself, the going, and then he had a third tablet with fast.
They're all in one tablet.
Oh, he was switching back and forth? Oh, well, then he got very tech savvy, and he switched back and forth with it. And then he had Fast Announce up and running too, so that he could keep track of when, because he was the gate, not the the announcer themselves. They were way across the facility, and so he had Fast Announce, so he could see when the judges had keyed in, all the equipment, and then he knew when to start, not equipment, but the results. So he knew when to start, hauling everybody in for the next class. I mean, he was like, he was all over it. Within a day, he was like, this is awesome. It was a 10-day show.
Like, I'm not using this. He refused. And then we just like, it's not that bad. Most people will learn it. Like, I had a guy with a flip phone came to me and said, you're gonna have a problem with me. And by the end of that show, he came up to me and said, this was really, really pretty good. Thanks.
The very first show that I worked with Carla Peacock. It was an Appaloosa show in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and her scribes didn't show up. She had 4 judges: Clint Fullerton, Charlene and Mike Carter, and Lori Gordon. And she had no scribes, and she was going to use tablets for the very first time. And this was set many years ago now, so the tablets were fairly new to most people, not just her and her group. And she told the judges, she's like, well, you're just going to use them. And they're like, what? What do you mean I'm going to use them? Within an hour, Mike Carter was telling Clint how to do things. I mean, it's not rocket science. One of the goals for us over this year actually really is to try to lower the threshold, the confusion and the understanding of the threshold of getting to start using these tools. Everybody's always worried about, networking, the facility, the this, the that. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And yes, technology does fail at times. So don't ever get rid of your piece of paper, because that's the power goes out. The power goes out. The Wi-Fi goes down. You don't always have control about it, over everything. So never get rid of it completely.
Congress, if the internet go down, it's on circuit.
Yeah.
So it will happen at the best of facilities.
Right. So. All right, Wayne, do you have anything specific that we haven't already touched on? Awesome, very good. So one of the things that we've been trying to do over the last couple of years is we know that the show secretaries and the shows themselves, the people that are running the shows, sponsors are getting tougher and tougher to get. Trying to charge more at the show level, at the show secretary level. I mean, we've been putting a lot of time and effort, obviously, into the changes and stuff that we've been doing with our software, and $175 a year from each of you guys who pays, into the maintenance contract is not going to cover it, but we can't charge you guys $1,000 a year because you're all going to go, well, I can't use the software then because it's, it's cost prohibitive kind of thing to do. So we've been trying to move our business model more towards offering more features to the exhibitor side as well as the show producers themselves who, so like Tracker, for instance, when we put it out there for the draws and results, everybody at the show, it makes the show producers feel like they're stepping into the next level of, technology, and ooh, look what we have. We have an app that you can, pull up on your phone and get all the information. So they like it from a good perspective of, the outside world of like, who we're moving up in the world kind of thing. The exhibitors themselves, now that we're doing online entries, they can save all their data online, and then they can, add, enter shows that are being put out there. So one of our goals, again, as we hit these pain points this year, is to try to get more and more shows on the app to do online entries, which makes the subscription that you need for doing online entries more powerful to the user, because there's now 50 shows on there, and then there'll be 100 shows on there, and then there'll be a couple of hundred shows on there. And so their $25 a year subscription to do entries for their horse becomes more agreeable to them, kind of thing. So so in trying to push some of those costs down the line a little bit from where you guys sit, so that you don't have to either go back to your producers or, charge more at your shows kind of thing.
You guys haven't noticed your prices have gone up in 10 years. So our model is not to go after the secretaries. Secretaries do not have the money. We know where the money comes from. We're trying to get it so hands off of you, and we're going to see more and more of that push. So the more and more you guys can support us, support you, you're going to see more features coming out and not raising the rates on you guys. And as you see the technology grows, the expectations of the exhibitors are way higher than they ever were, and we can make things easier on them, and the overall experience can be faster for everybody involved.
Right. And that goes back to what Ray was saying too, is we're trying to entice more and more people who are, thank you, show secretaries and producers who are willing to encourage in different ways. And we've had several different ways that people have encouraged online entries to be used, and $5 off an office charge, or some of the producers actually, Heidi works with a group who is paying a per horse fee so that their exhibitors don't have to pay the subscription rate kind of thing. So there's
Doug Hall's charged $5 extra. I think he made $1,600 on the show by doing that, because not everyone wants to do. There's always going to be someone who wants to do paper. So he made money off of charging a $5, encouragement to do online entries. So it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win. And by the way, the subscriptions, because of the advanced features that we sell subscriptions, they actually make a lot more money than just the online entry minimal $24 rate. So people do like the advanced features a lot, according to the numbers we're seeing.
Yeah, and people initially, when we first put it out there with subscriptions, everybody wants to complain that, oh my gosh, you're going to charge me to do what, kind of thing. And but over the last year and a half since we started doing online entries, it's growing. People are getting used to it.
It's a lot faster.
It's a lot quicker to do it. We sit at shows a couple of times. We've gone to shows to try to encourage people and show people how to use it. And we had a guy sit down at our table that we had sitting there, and he's like, I don't know why all those people are standing in line. I just did it on my phone, and it took me 15 minutes to be done, and it was all done. And he did it sitting at the barn. Well, I meant like he didn't have to stand in line. What I actually meant to say was he didn't have to stand in line for 15 minutes, because all he had to do was he did it all there. And when he came in, he just picked up his back number, handed over a check, and he was done. So yeah, we're getting a lot more traction on the usage of the tracker. And so what we are hoping to do as well is to start hitting the shows that are not using it so far and start encouraging that. Smaller shows can still benefit from doing stuff, ahead of time, and there's no requirement that they have to pay for it up front. I mean, we have that option, but so it's still the same as if they filled out a piece of paper and mailed it to you, 3 weeks before the show, and then don't show up, you're not going to charge them, that kind of thing. So a lot of options anyway. We'll go through all of that. So I think what we'll do is start with, I think our agenda seems pretty reasonable then based on what we heard. So we're going to start with overview of the changes we made in Horseshoe for Windows over the last couple of years. We'll kind of go through some of the screens to refamiliarize everybody with what Horse Show for Windows does and how we can set things up. As we go along, we're also going to talk about some of the things that benefit using Tracker and tablets. That'll be kind of like the second half of the day that we talk about. We'll do some networking stuff. Then we'll talk about connecting tablets, Tracker, fast announce, all that kind of stuff. We'll go through some of the features of fast announce. Obviously, online entries is part of that as well. And then we'll just take more questions. And feel free to raise your hand or shout out. I mean, it's not a real big group, so
ask questions as they come up. Don't wait because there's a lot of information.
Yeah.
We may skip past 2 or 3 things. So if you have a question on something that's happening right then, ask your question then.
Yes, very good. And be patient with me because I am going to stop and start the videos along the way because we want to be able to try to use these moving forward with others, or at least as a good. Yeah, so we'll provide them to everybody as well. So if you're, you can kind of go back and, you can double or triple time listening to it. And, oh, is that where Kathy's going to say that? Or hey, he's going to talk about this here. So so we have a couple of places that we're going to kind of stop and start the video as we go through too.
I do have a question from the FunnWare website side of things. Is everybody familiar with how to do the downloads and where to find them? Because one of the things that we kind of forget is that updates are made quite regularly. And not everybody always knows there's a new update. Does everybody know where to look for updates and how to look for those things?
I don't remember to look for them.
Okay. Right.
All right.
See, that's the thing you kind of forget there.
Yeah. So what's kind of what we put. Yeah. So kind of what we put on the agenda was to kind of go through the FunnWare website too. We do try to send emails out, but I put an update out a couple days ago. It was 501. We found a couple of small things, and because of some other changes that we made, and we're at 503 right now. I'm not going to put an update, an email out every 10 minutes kind of thing, but we do try to put them out when it's a major change, and certainly when we've seen a lot of people download. Part of the reason that we ask you for, and we'll run through this in a few minutes, but part of the reason that we ask you to key in who you are each time you do a download is so that we can kind of keep track as to how many people are downloading and who's done the download. If only 3 people have downloaded it since I made a fix over here, then I can email you 3 and say, hey, we had a weird issue over here and I've updated a new one, versus sending another email that people are going to ignore to 1,000 people to say, hey, we changed from 501 to 503. I actually put out 501, put out 502, and the gal who was like just paying attention to 501, the email for 501 said, well, the website says it's 502, is that right? And I'm like, well, yes, it's right, and you're good. And no, you don't need a new maintenance contract just because I went from 501 to 502.
we are making changes at a much faster rate. It used to be a yearly release. Now it's expect a change every couple of months. That's something you may want. And before you go to your show, it's always a good idea to check the site and see if you're out of sync with the last version. Especially for tech support, if you're having any issues during the show, the first thing we're going to tell you is if you have the latest update.
Right. So FunnWare.com is our main website. I'm going to go to the main page here. Under downloads, you can get to the HSW update information, which I was reminded of not that long ago that I forgot to update this page. So she was like, well, you don't have a new update. And I'm like, oh, but I do. And yeah, so this page, I am now remembering to update this page as well. So this is the one we just put out for those of you guys who got the email already. A lot of the new features now are requiring administrator access. So we have several services that are running in the background for the mobile tools and things like that. And so administrator access is required to run those, to turn them off and on internally. So we're trying to get to do more of that within Horse Show for Windows so that you guys don't have to. We were part of the pain points, I think, is that we would say, oh, you got to turn off the services over here. And people are like, well, how do I get there? And so we're trying to do more internally with Horse Show for Windows, as opposed to having people having to go out to this app or that app to kind of handle that. Administrator privileges are necessary. So we have automatically forced the Horse Show for Windows, the HSW icon that we generate, to run at administrator privileges, but lots of people have extra icons on their screen to tap into different things, different locations, potentially different databases. So we added on the website, we added a link to how to change those to FunnWare or to administrator privileges as well. So and I'm not sure if everybody's
So what she's doing there is setting every icon to run as the super user administrator, and you want to do that at all times because it takes away a lot of the security and the pain points that you run into for miscellaneous, because somebody will set up a file, someone on your system, for whatever reason, will make a directory secure. You put that file in that directory. This will get around those kinds of shortcomings.
Right. So the other thing too is that I wanted to point out, if everybody's not familiar with it, is on our support tab in our website, we have these FAQs. And they are, we kind of add to them as we go through. We try to anyway. You can search for them. So like, you know, if I was to type in network, it would give me all the options or all the questions, you know, quote unquote. It's really hard to make them questions. I mean, like, because FAQ is technically frequently answered questions. So you got to make them questions. But anyway, so you can kind of tab in and check out the FAQs. Again, we try to keep them updated. What we've been starting to do more and more is, as the phone calls come in, we're trying to track the ones that we get more frequently and update them in there. We have also added, for those of you guys who may or may not know this yet, if we haven't talked to you through any of this, but we've also added the ability to remote support into your computer. So if you are connected to the internet at the time you're calling, or if you need specific help, we have added a remote support. And you can click on, if you're a Windows or a Mac, click on TeamViewer. It gives you a ID that you tell us along with a password, and we can log in and we can kind of step through. And that's been real helpful, I would say, over the last 2 years that we've been using it pretty heavily. It's a lot easier to show somebody what I'm talking about, or what we're talking about, than it is to try to talk them through it while they're on the computer. Sometimes it's like, what screen are you on? Or, what are you seeing on the screen? Or what did you try to just type into a field, kind of thing. So like, there's several fields that, although we try to catch them prior to you doing anything, there's a couple of fields that are you can't put an alphabet number in. And so yesterday Heidi was doing this herself and she just kept hitting A. And I'm like, okay, 3 times it's told you don't put an A. But if you're not, recognizing that or reading that or seeing that, visually from our perspective on the tech side or on the support side, it makes it a lot harder to help you, and then everybody gets frustrated. So this has been actually a really, really great tool for us to be able to just log in. Yeah.
So you're stuck with anything like that. It works just fine.
So I'm kind of going through some of these things real quickly, but it's all on the.
Does everyone know how they have to use the hotspot on their phone? Oh,
okay, cool.
Did most of you have TeamViewer downloaded onto your stuff?
It's pretty easy to do. The one that we have there, you can actually download it as a full-blown software. They provide it free for non-commercial use, so we have a license, but you guys don't need one. And then they also, what we have on our remote support is just kind of a quick pop-up, like it doesn't fully download the entire software. So if you're utilizing it this way, then you would just keep coming to this site, click it. It does a quick install of, and I think when you close it, it uninstalls it, kind of thing too. So. Doesn't require a lot of anything other than internet access and you saying yes to us to get logged in. And I think people are more and more connected to the internet at pretty much most times anymore. That has kind of changed over time. And again, I'm not trying to go real fast through. Well, I am a little bit, I guess, but I just mean I'm going fast, but everything's down here, and we're just trying to give kind of a brief overview to get you guys back into the sync of where things are and how to find them. So back to the updates, the adjustments to the FunnWare services and mobile tools, we'll talk a little bit more about them. Some of you guys have used them, some of you have not. All of this information that we post here also is the one that comes out in the email. If you guys are not getting the emails, then feel free to send support@funware.com an email and we'll add you to the list. Everybody who downloads the software at any time, that email automatically gets added to our list. So you get that's why the list kind of populates from there, is anybody who's done. We made several changes, as Ray said. We're kind of, especially with the mobile tools, we're making changes more and more frequently, either updates to the apps themselves or to Horseshoe for Windows for those connections. So it is always a good idea to kind of come out here and just make sure that you're on the most current version of the software. For those of you guys who do AQHA, over the last 2 years since they put out their new RJ file, it's been a process, but that's all I'm going to go and say there. They've made some additional changes that they asked us to do to kind of make their lives a little bit easier and hopefully your lives a little bit easier. We're going to talk a little bit too, and I apologize to the POAC ladies over here, but we're going to talk a little bit about the AQHA upload process and the stuff that we're working with them to try to make your guys' lives easier and then in their lives a little easier so that your shows get processed quicker. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but we made many changes to that. So yeah, definitely make sure you're updating there so that they're getting the file that they want as opposed to the previous file, which is apparently not the file that they want anymore. And again, we a little bit briefly touched upon this, is that we kind of are always keeping up with the associations and potentially, you know, our users as to the changes that we are making. When we go and work shows, the very first year I worked with Chris Darnell at a show, I pulled her in to help me at a horse show. It's the first time I met her, and because I was working the office in the show, and she sat next to me and said, and I just said, well, just do this. And she goes, well, that doesn't work. And I go, well, of course it does. And it didn't. So we fixed it, you know, kind of thing. So you got to tell us too, you know, when things are not going right. I know you guys are all smart and everybody's figured out workarounds of how to do things if things don't work exactly. But if we don't know they're not working for you, then we can't help. So definitely please, you know, send those emails either to me personally. Actually, support@funware.com is the best one because several of us monitor that. So if I'm not, you know, catching mine right away, we'll at least have a good understanding. And that is actually a good catch-all for us too, because the more times, again, going back to the FAQs, the more times a question gets asked, you know, we've been adding it to the FAQ section as well. Printing score sheets from the system for AQHA in particular, NRHA, NRCHA, and a couple of the other associations we've been doing score sheets for a while. And this past year, actually with the help of AQHA themselves, because we're now working at their world shows, you guys can now print score sheets directly from Horse Show for Windows. You used to be able to do it only if there was a draw. And so one of the changes that we made this year, just recently, was that you can now print enough sheets for however many entries are in your class without putting the draw in there, without putting back numbers in there. That way, if you've got, you know, 32 in the class, it'll print you 4 sheets per judge, empty sheets, with the maneuvers across the top and the class name and the judge information at the bottom, that kind of thing, where everything's already all filled in for you. And then you can make a couple extra copies if you're expecting a lot more at the gate. But that at least gets you a good starting point for having that without you guys having to, you know, handwrite in the maneuvers and then which class is at the top. And it gives your scribes one less thing to do, especially if you're going to start asking them to use tablets. It's one less thing that they have to do on their score sheets to include that information.
So is that just bringing grand track, or is that?
You can do it for
any of the, so all the pattern classes and we'll step through where those are, but any of the pattern classes, actually basically any class that AQHA holds, we've created a score sheet that you can print, and you can put the maneuvers on. Yep. And we'll go through that a little bit to show you where you set that up. We're still working to make that process a little bit easier, but it's kind of easy to get that stuff plugged in and then print them out. And again, if you have a draw and you're sticking with that draw, you know, then you're welcome to print it with the draws on it, but you could also print them empty. AQHA, obviously, when we're at the World Show, they print them full because the draw is the draw. 3 weeks before, the draw is the draw. For good, bad, or indifferent. So there's different ways of doing it. Bad, yeah. We're not fans of the 3 week before, month before draws. So just a couple of cleanup things that down in the fixes area. The original update that we put out actually in December, we made a couple of changes then too. That was NRCHA puts their actual starting of the year is December 1st. So they require all of their show secretaries to use their new score sheets, and they change them every single year. Little tweak here, there, whatever. Sometimes it's literally just the used in 2021 up in the top little corner there. So so that's the list of, and again, it's not going to be complete because I know Ray, we were doing this not that long ago, and Ray's looking at that. He goes, "I'm pretty sure you've done a lot more than that." So there will probably be more things as we go through things like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, good, that's fixed, or that's whatever. So the other thing to look at is under support also, we have the system requirements. So as you guys are going to start building up into using more of the mobile tools, the computer that you have may or may not fit the bill anymore, because it's doing a lot more work in the background. Especially if your computer is not only going to do all the work in the background to handle the stuff coming in from online, the stuff coming in from the gate, the stuff coming in from the announcers and the judging tablets, and you're going to sit there and use it as your entries in the office kind of thing. You're going to need a computer that can handle that kind of load. Computers are not outrageously expensive, and anything that you buy, well, right now maybe with COVID having hit in our supply chain, it's still not that bad. But you're definitely going to want to take a look at the system requirements and make sure that before you're moving up into utilizing this, that the computer that you're going to use can handle the load and the new features. Again, we're not top heavy. The software doesn't really require much, even the mobile tools and stuff, but you want a good speed. You want an SSD drive, which is going to have more quickness to the work that you're doing, because there's a lot of talking, obviously, back and forth over the network. And so,
how many pens is that in their worst case scenario? How many pens do people have that they're running? 4. You want a good one, right?
You guys only have 1.
3,
2,
and 4. You really want to
2.
have a really good computer. 2 gets to be, please have an i7 or better, 16 gig right RAM. Your computer, the i5 that I just carried in, that's marginal. If it starts going slow, you'll know why. So I can't. It is a desktop that helps.
Yeah, that does help.
I would get somebody else to donate one of those i7s.
I know, that would be nice.
Yeah.
This one was donated.
It was donated. There you go. Donations are nice. We
Well,
appreciate
he
that.
asked me what I needed, because I asked him about a server.
Right.
And he said, well, what do you need? And I was like, well, here, because that's where I'm lost. And next thing I know, he was delivering it.
Nice.
Like, okay, he refurbished.
Sure. But that works.
He gave it to us because we run a memorial show for one of our youth kids that was killed in a car accident 2 years back. And he goes, it's yours. Just give me some swag. Okay.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah.
I started taking whatever I could find.
Have a water bottle.
Hey, QHA provided the water bottles. And we can help. One of the things that Ray's going to talk about a little bit later is we're starting to put together what we're calling Horse Show in a Box, which basically like we would talk to you about your needs. And again, if you guys are already have your pieces and parts, that's fine. If you know other people that are looking for it too, again, we're trying to take away some of those pain points and not make you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to go buy a router and I have to go buy this and I have to go buy that. We send you a box and it's got, the computer. You add your additional computers, we could buy those, get you those as well. But a router, access points, things like that we'll touch on a little bit later, what those all mean and that kind of thing. But we can kind of provide it, have the software loaded, and then we just, send it all to you. You with one of the things that we've been talking about is color coding, with little color coding tape, plug it into here, plug it into there. We were tech supporting. Well, we were tech supporting over the phone with Vanessa at a horse show a couple weeks ago, and she was plugging into the wrong port in the back of her router. And then, so it was, trying to color code it prior to getting there so that she knows which one to plug it into once she gets there. Yeah, exactly. So, so those are the system requirements. And we talked a little bit about remote support already. So downloading the software is the easiest way of getting it, is, kind of tap into the updates. And if you see that this version is higher than the one that you currently have on your software, you can click here to download button. This is where it's going to take you to our little fill out this information screen. And again, you don't have to be. Heidi was saying, well, I don't remember what options that I have. And I'm like, it's less that we're trying to match you up with what we have in our system. We're trying to basically just kind of keep track of who's downloading it, what their needs might be, and adding you to our list if you're not already on it so that you get further emails. Also trying not to get spammed, not spammed, but if you get some of that's why you have to do captures and stuff when you go and download things. If you get those bots to come in and download, like they kind of keep slamming on your website, then the email service plus your host provider, which may or may not be the same one, is it costs a lot more. So we're trying to, again, keep our costs reasonable. Yeah, this is, see, I run 0, but I hate to say that. So M7,
one day when I did the download, I was annoyed and I put 157 shows. I don't know. There's like 157 of them.
Well, that's cool. See, yeah.
So I was wondering if anybody ever read that years ago. I was like, I didn't actually think I did that many.
Did you get an email from somebody right away that says, hey, we want to, I don't know, support you in this. Since you run so many shows, we're going to, do this, that, and the other thing. If everybody wants to download and follow through, if you haven't already, I know Charlene did it already 10 minutes ago. So I don't have, just for you guys, I don't have the POAC. We talked a little bit about this, Lindsay, that we'll be working on that next week. What we do with POAC, just for the rest of you guys, is we take a snapshot basically of their membership because we work with their in-house registration and membership and show tracking software as well. And so we take a snapshot of their membership usually in middle of March, and then include that in their software. So every horse and person that's already in their database is a, well, they're not all current members, but they have current membership information so that when they go to use the software later in the show, the people and horses are up to date, if you will. They have less work to do. POACs came into this kind of kicking and screaming a little bit, not from our perspective, but from theirs and their people. They were like, you want me to do what? So they're still working towards a lot of technologically supportive things. Some affiliates do a better job than others. So then it takes you to the actual downloads page. And again, this number here should match the number that you saw over there. And when you click on it, it's going to download the install file. You can see that I've downloaded this.
It actually should be higher because what you just saw.
Yes, sorry.
8.502.
Yeah.
So the download that you do should always be higher than the update information, because you haven't put anything out yet that says here's what's updated with 8.503.
There was only one thing, so I might have just changed.
Right.
I might have just changed the
Right.
the number over there. So you'll get the HSW install, and as you know, we kind of step through what you need to do up there. But when you get the HSW install, I'm not going to run through the whole installation process. Actually, I guess I can. It doesn't really hurt anything, except that I have Horseshoe for Windows open. So no, I'm not, because Horseshoe for Windows does need to be closed when you're running through the install program, because it will not override. So again, going back to administrator privileges and Windows trying to help, Windows and Microsoft, they're trying to help you. Sometimes I think they hinder us more than they help us. So in this case, Windows doesn't know who FunnWare development is per se. And yes, we could spend tens of thousands of dollars letting Microsoft know that, but then that would cost you guys more. So we just teach people to click the more info and keep going. You don't always get this. Sometimes if your system has already done the setup once before or that kind of thing, it's one of those, don't know why it picks it up once or not. That when you run it anyway, that's when you'll go through the more familiar, yes, we're going to run through the update, and then this is the more familiar installation. Goes through the license agreement, reminds you, gives you the information as to what's been updated here, reminds you that the initial password is super. That's one thing that we don't have on our agenda that we could potentially talk about too, is passwords and security levels, if anybody's interested. Yeah. And I forget when it starts to, or then the next one is where you're going to put it, and then it'll start installing it. So I have Horseshoe for Windows open already since we're doing the trainings, and I didn't want to have to go find my databases that we want to use because we're testing, so I'm not going to run through the process. But one thing also to note is that now we are including all the services that are running through with the mobile tools and whatnot, so the installation takes a little bit longer and will pop up a lot of little weird messages that you may go, what's happening? But they run through them pretty quickly, and you see kind of progress bars throughout as they do them. So don't be alarmed. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that so that we don't, I'm going to get another message that says it's over. So when you're done getting it all installed, your version, it'll ask you if you want to start it right away, and you can get going right away. If you're gonna just get up and running right away, it will update your database to the most current version. If necessary, we make changes to database structures or class codes, or in the POAC cases, horses and people, excuse me. So there's a process you guys have probably all watch the process along the way where it's updating this class or that class or, you know, database structures and stuff. So that obviously continues to do that and getting those pieces and parts all ready for whatever the most current version is. Okay, so I'm going to go through one more thing as we've, again, going back to some of the changes that we made. Under the utilities menu, we've got the maintain system preferences, and we were going to kind of tap through some of the items on here since they're newer. Most of the other features are similar to what we've already had for many, many years.